All right, you are now live.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome everyone. I didn't have a chance to say hello to everyone. Welcome, Hannah, and Liz did say hello to you. Welcome, Maggie, and welcome, Pam, and Sonia, and welcome, Bailey and Amy. Nice to have you here. And Krista's here with us at the moment too, so welcome to you as well. So I'd like to call our meeting to order, acknowledging that we're a little bit late today, but I'm sure we'll get all of our business done in the time that we have. And as we always do, I'd like to acknowledge that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So with that, let us proceed through our agenda. And the first thing that I have in front of me is approval of the minutes for October 5th and approval of minutes for November 2nd. So let's talk about the October 5th minutes first. Becky, I think you have a motion on this.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to defer this motion, approval of these minutes, October 5th, until the next meeting, with the expectation that staff will consult with Councillor Cuttle and Councillor Daigle-Gammon regarding pronoun use.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I will second.
Hannah would second that. All those in favor, could you indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I see Sonia has a hand up.
Yeah, Sonia, are you voting in favor or are you wanting to ask a question?
I think Sonia's voting in favor, but I'll wait for her to answer that. I know she was having some issues. In favor, she said in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Liz opposed.
I did oppose. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll tell you why I opposed, with the greatest respect to my colleagues. Staff just expressed that the reason why that this practice has been put in place is that they feel that they are stretched for time, and that they feel that the task of verifying everyone's pronouns is onerous. And I feel troubled by responding to that immediately by saying, yes, but you have to go and do it. For me, if they're following a policy that's established, then they're following a policy that's established. And what is needed is not to deal with these minutes here for these particular people. What is needed is to look at the policy, and we could add that to the agenda. I expressed before we went live that I thought the policy probably needed some revision, but I think it's a policy that should be universally applied to everybody. And I think that we can't just go and say, okay, well, these two people are counselors, so we'll check with them about their pronouns and add this extra work to staff who have expressed that it's onerous in this instance, instead of just taking back the policy and revising it, which I think adding a gender lens to whether policies make sense or not is kind of our whole thing. So that piece seems to me like sensible work for the committee to do, but to send these minutes back when, for me, an established policy is being followed is not something that I think is the best practice.
Okay, so we've had a vote, right? And the motion has carried because only one is opposed.
But I presume that my dissent will be recorded in the minutes?
It certainly can, of course.
Well, then I'm good.
I don't believe it normally would be. Normally, we would just write if the motion passes or if it's defeated.
So we don't record dissents on the record in our minutes?
We would, I guess, in this case, we wouldn't necessarily record that you voted against it, but we could record that you spoke to this.
I would appreciate that. And
okay.
I think we could consider recording dissents as a matter of policy, which is done in many other settings, and which I think is sensible.
Check with the clerk's office. I'll consult with them to see what the normal practice would be for that, but definitely. And then, like you said, Liz, this can be something that is discussed at a future meeting, the January meeting. And actually, Krista is just telling me here that if you would like to do a recorded vote, we can do that as well.
So Councillor Kent wants to speak, I think, and Councillor Lovelace wants to speak. So let's, Councillor Kent, do you want to speak? No. Councillor Lovelace, do you want to speak? Oh, now I see Councillor Lovelace's, or Councillor Kent's.
Councillor Lovelace also has her hand up.
Yeah, Councillor Lovelace, do you want to speak?
Certainly, I think we lost Councillor Kent.
Oh.
I don't,
Um,
sure.
It's showing me Councillor Ken still in the meeting, just as on mute, has her.
Yeah, that's what I'm
okay.
seeing too.
Well, I would just say that I appreciate your comments, Liz, and I think that moving forward, certainly this committee could put forward a motion to review the policy. I haven't seen the policy, so I would like to see it. And certainly if we can address this by getting these motions, getting these minutes passed, we certainly have identified a more significant issue, I think, with regards to assumptions. I think it's important for us, if we're going to be an organization that acknowledges people and their pronouns, then we should do that in writing as well and in record keeping. So I just think, you can't have it both ways. You can't on one hand say that we're going to acknowledge people's pronouns, and then on the other hand, within our official record keeping, not actually acknowledge that. It doesn't sit well with me. But I guess the other thing I would say too is that, I don't know that it is onerous on staff. If it's a person's name and their pronoun is associated with their name when they sign up to speak in the presentation, it's certainly not onerous. It would already be part of the record. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Councillor Kent, did you want to say anything? We actually have actually had a vote on the deferral of the minutes, and the
Councillor Kent is saying in the chat that she doesn't know why her camera isn't working or showing her face. She said her lens is open,
but she's here.
Yeah, and
But
I am here. I don't know what's going on with that. I just wanted
Okay.
you guys all to know that.
Okay, thanks. All right, can we move on? We have a motion that to defer these minutes, and it was passed. So
Yeah.
Can we move on to the minutes for the November 2nd meeting? Looking for a motion to approve them as circulated.
I can make that motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, moved by Councillor Lovelace. Can I have a seconder?
I can second that.
Maggie, thank you. Seconded by Maggie. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. That's especially important for our Councillor Lovelace, who we can't see.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, and the motion is carried. Item 3 is approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Elizabeth, are there any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
All right, so could we have a motion that we approve the agenda as it's been circulated? Moved by Liz, seconded by Hannah. Thank you. Ready for the question? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, show of hands. Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, business arising out of the minutes. I believe there is none, and that leads us to the call for a declaration of conflict of interest. So you have seen the agenda and you know what's going to be discussed, and so I'm just now asking if anyone here has conflict that they need to declare. Nope. Okay. Let's move on. Deferred business, there is none. correspondence, petitions, or delegations? Elizabeth, do we have any correspondence or any petitions or any delegations or presentations?
None have been received by the clerk's office.
All right, so then we'll move on to item 8. Any information items to be brought forward, and there are none. So that just takes us right to the discussion of our work plan. So just this is the fun part of the year, where we get to blue sky and think about issues that we think are important for us to learn more about in the coming year. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go around the table, so to speak, around the computer screen, and ask your thoughts about any issues that you think Watch should focus on during 2024. So if you, just to kind of recap what we decided last year with our work plan, is we decided that the sort of one of our priority 1 was health, safety, wellness, and the quality of life facing women, with an emphasis on marginalized women. And we looked at topics like self-care and work-life balance, sex trafficking, mental health issues, gender-based violence prevention, public safety, income, and so on. Now, we didn't get through all of those topics. And so it may be that you want to make sure that you do in 2024. And the second priority was women's involvement in non-traditional roles, including employment and involvement in municipal boards, committees, and so on, with a focus on Indigenous women. And the third priority was, just get it in front of me, housing security, homelessness, shelters, and affordability. And so those were the 3 areas that we had identified where we wanted to learn more about those topics. And we tried to do that by inviting people to come and speak to us. And the goal out of that was to have motions going forward. And just on that, I'll stop talking here in a second, but I don't know if any of you noticed in the, because I'm a dinosaur and I read the Chronicle Herald every day, there was an article in the Chronicle Herald on November 28th about funding for campaign finances. And you'll recall that Councillor Lovelace had put forward a motion at our last meeting, and there was a reference to that motion in that newspaper article. So kudos to all of you. And thank you, Pam, for bringing that motion forward. And thank you for getting it on sort of into the public discussion. I think we probably precipitated that to some extent. So that's the kind of thing that can happen when we decide that we want to learn more about something. And we invited the councillors to our meeting, and that topic came up, and lo and behold, we maybe have some input. So at any rate, I will stop talking, and I'm going to just listen to hear what you have to say. I'm going to use the list that is on my minutes. We're going to start with you, Councillor Lovelace. What topics, what issues, what items do you think that are facing women that you would like to have on our learning for next year?
So one of the things, I've been looking at over the last few years is financial literacy. We held, in work that I did before I was on council, we held an incredible event where women of all stripes, all backgrounds came together to talk about money. And it was so interesting how, generationally, older women didn't really feel comfortable about talking about it. Younger women were unsure about money. The gender gap in financial literacy is quite clear in how investments are made primarily by men. Investment decisions are made by men. Women, don't have the background really that they need in order to be able to make financial decisions that benefit themselves, their family, and also, future generations of their family. So when we look at kind of the stereotype concerns, when we look at the lack of confidence when it comes to financial literacy, but the significant benefit to women, especially single income women and their family members, as well as when women are taking care of older family members, parents, for example. I think that, financial literacy means that it could mean that a woman would actually be able to leave a relationship, an unsafe and harmful relationship, if she had control of her funds and control of her financial future. So I think there's a lot of benefit to looking at that, thinking about that economic conversation and how it is that that women could be more financially literate, and also just to kind of break apart that stereotype and stigma.
That's a big topic. You're right. I mean, if you unpack that financial literacy a little bit, there's a lot of aspects to it that could be considered. Any other topics that you think are important that we should either continue on with? I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying what we did last year was good, but we need to hear some more on this particular topic.
Is this open to the whole floor, or is that expected for a Pam only?
I was just addressing that to Pam, but if she's, no, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought you were asking other people.
No, I was asking you if there was anything more that you wanted.
No,
any
I'm
other?
good.
You're
No.
good. Okay. All right. Okay. Councillor Kent, how about you? What would you like to?
Thank you. So a couple of things. One, I would like to suggest that if we could hear the list of the things again and identify the ones that we didn't get to. I'm coming in a little late, so
Okay.
and I have to confess I've not gone back and read all the minutes for the whole year. So my point here is whatever was not able to pursue or have an opportunity for presentations, maybe we should plan to revisit those in particular. So I would like to see that. Really glad to see the housing security piece was involved. I think we should continue to monitor that one every year for a while. This housing crisis is not going away. I think that it would be nice to have some form of insight from even First Voice, if we can, for unhoused women, and particularly the impact that it disproportionately has on women, traditional caregiving roles and such like that. The other thing that I think goes with that, but it could certainly be as well for women who have no issue with housing but are struggling with food security. I think that one needs to be on our radar. I also want to remind us here that next year is an election year. So I don't know if we've done anything in the way of encouraging from this committee, encouraging in a public, maybe a public press release or anything like that around encouraging women to step forward. And maybe we could, I know we've been supportive of campaign schools and such, but have we ever really just put that kind of message out? This is a committee that we want women to be aware of. And if in March or something like that, when the election registration opens, it might be a nice way to put something out there, very, neutral, obviously, in relation to who and why, but some form of a statement. Given that it's an election year, let's take advantage of that to be a strong inspiration for women to consider running.
Okay, so just on that, that was part of the reason we hosted the panel of all the women councillors, and we tried to, involve the public, invited members of the public. I think that's one of those kind of things that could build over time, and maybe as a committee we think about doing it again within a few months, and try again to have the public attend that and learn more about what is involved in being a counselor and what's involved in being involved in committees. But the idea, so what I hear you saying though, is that you'd like maybe us to think about actually making a statement, and that you'd like us to deal with any issues or topics that we didn't get to this past year in our work plan.
And food security.
And food security, yes, I got housing security with special emphasis on unhoused women and hearing from them directly, sort of from the first voice. Did I capture what you were saying?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hannah, let's go to you.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Counselor Lovelace's opinions around financial literacy. Having recently taken a job working for a financial organization, I've come to learn a lot of disturbing stats, specifically in the Nova Scotian area around poverty and lack of education, and financial literacy being a key piece of that. One of the stats I just pulled up was that Black Nova Scotians, specifically the females, make almost $5,000 less than non-minority females, and they make almost $15,000 less than non-minority males. And so looking at ways where we can address some of the issues around disparities within wages, and educating females on how to have conversations that don't get them in trouble and don't make them seem like they're less than, and actually get them to push for higher salaries that are there. We just never ask for them a lot of the time. So financial literacy is one of them. And then really taking a look at the safety strategies. I know that the Public Safety Committee is doing an excellent job, but that's one of the things in my new role that a lot of people have been commenting on, is that they're in communities, specifically minority communities, that are not safe, and they walk, a couple feet and they're into a much richer, wealthier community, and they have better streetlights, and their bus stations are taken better care of. And you just had to walk 1 block, so it's not like they're far out of the city. They're just hidden, and the city, because it's hidden, makes it look like they're not being taken care of as well as they should be. So addressing the minorities and the safety issues that they are dealing with that we don't see but are obviously happening.
Okay. So thank you. So what I heard you saying is that you support the idea of digging into this issue of financial literacy and sort of economic well-being of women, and particularly the disparity between the minority women and non-minority women and men.
Yeah, digging into all of that as a whole, but also bringing to light that there are some other disparities even within the female side of things. Right.
And that the second one that you talked about was just a continued focus on safety strategies.
Yes.
Amy Barley, I'll be happy to hear that, since that's her work. And she continues to work away at that and needs our support. And you're thinking here with safety strategies, again, with particular concern for minority communities where things
and not necessarily BIPOC or immigrant, just communities that might be in poverty that are facing different challenges than other communities.
Okay, in poverty. All right. Anything else that you would like to?
Not at this time. Those are my top 2.
Okay. Sonia, how about you? What would you like to focus on? Are we here, Sonia? I can see your picture.
Yeah. Hi. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm just going to be quick.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. Thanks. For me, I'm so happy that the 3 things that I felt strongly about this morning are some of the things that people are already talking about when talk about financial literacy. For me, I was concerned about the gender pay gap. I was wondering what kind of learning we could do, and in what way we could support to help women to address that disparity. So that's one thing I thought about. The second one was concerning domestic violence, especially intimate partner violence, seems to be a really big conversation right now within the province. If we've been following some of the things that have been happening, even in the House, it came up severally, and so just wondering how we could do more learning and equip ourselves better with resources or whatever to be able to help that situation. And then the last for me, which for me is the most important, would be for us to learn more on intersectionality, because I feel like with all these topics, there's a big role that intersectionality plays in defining or redefining how all of these problems impact one human being. And so those are the three things that I'm really looking forward to, how we can learn more and also see how we can leverage on the knowledge or resources we can gather from that to help best position ourselves and support the work that we're assigned to do on this team. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. So just kind of, if I've captured it, you're also concerned with financial literacy, but specifically, so the gender pay gap and how do we support women who are facing this gap. I think that's similar to what Hannah had said, talking about just being able to negotiate for better wages and speak up and all that, right? If I understood what Hannah was saying. You're concerned about intimate gender violence and gender-based violence, thinking we could do more on that. I note, so just to go back to Councillor Kent, gender-based violence prevention was on our list last year, and I'm not sure we got very much done on that topic. But I'll come back to that later. And then Sonia is very concerned about intersectionality, so that we understand how women who are members of a variety of groups are impacted by particular situations, and how we can best position ourselves to speak out on behalf of them. Did I capture that right, Sonia?
100%. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Sonia, Liz, your turn.
I'm going to be super annoying today. So sorry in advance,
You're
everybody.
never super annoying, Liz. Please don't say
Oh,
that.
Jane. I just take that as a challenge. So look, I have process concerns. I have really big process concerns here. And I think what I would want to add to a work plan here is work. I think it's great that we're all talking about issues that we've identified. I think it's great that we're talking about learning. And I think that there is room for identified knowledge gaps and learning activities on a work plan, pas de question. Like, I think that's so important. But I've been on this committee for a year now. And in that time, I can certainly count on one hand the number of motions we've advanced. And my memory is bad because I'm middle-aged. But like, I don't think I'd use all the fingers on that hand. We have housing as our number 3 priority from last year, and council endorsed an update to our city's homelessness strategy, but it didn't come to us. We didn't see it. We're supposed to be reviewing policy from a gender lens. We're like, in order for us to actually advise, to be an advisory committee, we need to see things. We need to have council send things to us, new policy that's coming up, new initiatives that are happening, so that we can review and discuss at our meetings and offer a recommendation. My view is that our learning activities need to be in service of our deliverables. That we need, there's space for learning to make sure that we understand the issue so that we can give good advice. But I feel like we're just learning and learning. Like, this isn't a study group. This is an advisory committee. And I have some real concerns about the fact that I don't think we have firm expectations for deliverables. And I'm not convinced I understand what the role of this committee is actually supposed to be. So I think what I would put on the work plan is I would like to see new policies that are going to go to council for approval or endorsement come to us first so that we can review from a gender lens and make a recommendation.
Okay, so can I just capture that?
Yeah.
So, so what you're saying, what I hear you saying is for us to take a proactive approach with the HRM as it's doing policy development, so that those policies come to us for consideration. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then we can offer
Yeah.
our advice as
Yeah.
an advisory committee, as we could
Okay.
write up a write up a response, or we could write up suggestions or notes before it comes to council, so that it comes to council having done consultation with the advisory committee,
Right.
which is supposed to represent the interests of this particular interest group.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just in terms of deliverables, if you check on the work plan for 2023, we did have we do specify deliverables in terms of the numbers of motions.
Oh yes.
And so we will see whether or not, to what extent we have achieved our goals or not. And I'll prepare an annual report very soon, which will show exactly which motions came from the aligned with which priorities and to what extent we did them. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm expecting that, as you indicate, we've fallen short, and we need to work at that.
And we're all super smart, and we all have super great ideas, and we have a breadth and wealth of lived experience to offer. So it makes me ask the question, what is the barrier here? And look, like you all know me well by now. We've known each other for a year. I love to talk. I've got a job that doesn't listen to me. I've got kids that don't listen to me. That's fine. I'm used to it. But I just, I feel like we're here and we have a lot to contribute. And I would like to feel more confident that I'm trying to think of the most non-Liz way to say this. Like, I'm trying to think of how to say this like a polite person would. But like the people that put us in this position, I would like to feel more confidence that they actually want to hear what we have to say. And that if they do, that we're not stopping ourselves from saying what we have to say. Also, I think from a safety perspective, if we're interested in safety, I think we need to review road safety. The average height for a person assigned female at birth in this country is 5'4". The average height for a person assigned male at birth in this country is substantially higher. Those big trucks hit us more than they hit them. So I think we need to think about road safety. And I think also there's been quite a bit of research that's demonstrated the impact that the climate crisis is disproportionately felt by people assigned female at birth. And so I think if we want to talk about health, wellness, and safety, we need to talk about the way that Halifax is addressing the emergency that we declared, and whether we feel that the actions that we are taking as a municipality are in line with those goals. Thank you. I will stop being annoying for now.
That is not annoying. So, so if I hear this right, one of the things that you're very concerned about is that we have more action, that we are not satisfied just to learn, that the purpose of learning is to take action, and that we get on with it, take some action, that you'd like us to be proactive with regard to reviewing policies. Yes. And you're concerned about road safety and the gender, the impact of, I guess, gender differences on the road safety has different effects on men versus women. And you're also concerned about the climate emergency, and you'd like to address that.
You have captured perfectly my remarks here and my philosophy of life. Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have got your philosophy of life, but as long as I got your general comments, that would be good. That would be good. Okay, Maggie. Councillor Kent, did you want to kind of add in here, or I see your hand? Do you want to reply to somebody or ask a question?
No, thank you. I just wanted to reinforce, I think we're still going through the thing, but I just wanted to reinforce gender-based violence. I'm the chair of the Board of Police Commission, and we are looking at that very keenly, particularly with out of the mass casualty report, number of reports that we received. So I would really I didn't know that that was not able to go forward. So I'm really appreciate that Sonia brought that up and would very much like to see that go forward. The other point I wanted to make is that I think about what Liz has just said. I can imagine that it would be frustrating. And one of the things that I haven't seen happen that maybe we should be considering is the chair, for instance, offering some comments from the this committee through our budget debate. It's an opportunity to open the door for that kind of policy talk, and we can wrap it around. Of course, it's budget. You think, well, how does that relate to budget? But it does, because we were able to effectively make some progress on the campaign funding changes, and that's a good segue into that, and then segue over into we want to be more active in this kind of scenarios, right? So even that would have been a nice one to have a letter come from the chair, for instance, to in support of it. So just some thought.
Okay, good suggestion. So one of the ways so that we could become proactive would be through the budget debate. And that happens in March, does it not? April? No, January, February? Or is it all over?
It's actually all over, and you'd have to look at works at the halifax.ca under budget.
So next year.
Every budget debate. I think it is. Pam might correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we take public presentations at that point.
Okay. Pam, did you want to get in here?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So this has been a really good discussion. Obviously, when we talk about what we've done and how we've impacted decisions, I think Liz's point is on point. It is important for committee members to feel valued in being a committee member, but to know that their decisions and recommendations are valued. And so on that point, and just to Councillor Kent's point, budget discussions are ongoing for the next 3 months or 4 months. It's important for us to ensure that we as councillors advise the committee so that you can, if there are issues that the committee wants to bring forward during those budget committee meetings, if there's an opportunity for a presentation to be made to the budget committee. And I think it's important for us to consider our performance indicators and dig a little bit more into those, because Madam Chair, when you think about each of those priorities and that kind of performance grid and the ability to say, yes, we did this, or yes, we did that, I think what's missing here is an alignment with the work of the committee over the last 12 months, so that we can actually point to, here is the motion, here's the results of the motion that went to executive committee, here's what ended up going to regional council, so that committee members actually can see their work and how it is now embedded in policy or a staff report or whatever actually comes out of that initial motion at this committee. And I don't know, forgive me, but I don't know where these performance indicators actually came from. Was this, this comes directly from terms of reference. So back to Liz's point, we may actually need to rethink some of this policy year over year if the terms of reference don't actually adequately represent or reflect what it is that the hopes and dreams of this committee are. Then we potentially are just ticking things off the box as far as performance indicators go.
I think just to say, like, the performance indicators on the work plan have to do specifically with the learning objectives, not really with the mandate of the committee per se. And so they were agreed to by committee members last year as appropriate indicators. So that's when the work plan is drafted, it will come to the committee, and then it behooves the committee members to look very closely at the work plan and say, okay, are those indicators appropriate? The only other thing I would say is that the only time we kind of close the loop is when the annual report is prepared. And I've done that in the last 2 or 3 years, each year. And I would prepare the report based on that priority. So for example, it would say, this was our priority. This is what these are the presentations we heard. These are the motions we made. This is what happened with that motion. And this is where it's at this point in time. So that has only happened when the annual report's been done. And I'm thinking, as you're speaking, that maybe we should be doing that like at least twice a year. So everybody's getting the fact that we're doing, it's reinforcing. Oh man, we did, just like I was reporting on this newspaper article. Yes, what we are doing is having some impact. And then if we think we're having impact, or we know we're having some impact, we feel our time is well spent. So Maggie, I've taken up a whole bunch of your time, and so it's your turn. So do you want to add what issues or topics you would like to address?
Sure. No pressure for me to add anything more valuable after everybody else has gone and added so many good topics and good contribution to this table. But I think overall, we did really good last year. We had many presentations, and I can't speak on behalf of other people, but I have certainly learned a lot. I think we focused on the human trafficking, housing issues, domestic violence, but maybe the other topic, maybe the number one topic, was mental health, wellness, and daycare. That hasn't really been focused on, that I think maybe we could continue to focus on in 2024. Sorry, my cat feeder just went off. I don't know if you can hear it. I do have my earpods on, but
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I think I do agree with Liz and Councillor Lovis that, we could take more of a proactive approach on the things that we haven't really done that well, or after the annual report, maybe we can segregate to see what other steps we need to take. The other thing I wanted to add as a new topic for next year, and it may tie into the financial literacy, is I wonder if we could have some sort of support for women who wanting to start their own business, either it's education piece or funding, or for education piece, maybe we could add some bookkeeping, how to do your spreadsheet, and collect your receipts, and maybe there's any funding available. I know there are some funding available for women, specifically from mostly banks, but I'm not quite sure yet at this moment if there's any from the government side, and if we could do more to help women who want to start, either it's a side hustle or get their feet wet, or just fully dive right into having their own business, because small businesses are the backbone of our economy in Nova Scotia. Seeing that grow will certainly help with our economy in general overall. That's pretty much my contribution.
Okay, so mental health and wellness is important for you. You thought we had identified that, but we didn't get much done on that particular topic last year, so you're hoping we will this year.
Yes.
And in terms of financial literacy and women's income and so on, you'd like us to explore the topic of women entrepreneurs, women setting up their own businesses, and all the ramifications of that. Have I captured what you're thinking?
100%.
Okay. So the topics that two topics that I'm quite happy with, actually, the priorities that were established last year. I think that I would like to continue on focus on the health and safety and wellness and quality of life of women, and specifically some of the topics that we identified there: sex trafficking, mental health issues, again, gender-based violence, public safety, and so on. We could refine it a bit more because we've got, safety on roads, for example, which Liz has added, and climate emergency, which Liz has added. So we could add some of those into under that priority. Women's involvement in non-traditional roles. I personally really would like us to continue to focus on that. I'm not exactly sure how we do it, but keeping in mind, as Becky said, that this is an election year. If we have that as a priority, we'll maybe be creative in thinking. And then the other one is housing, which I think it was Becky that you said that we need to continue to just keep that on our radar screen, that problem is not going away. Hannah. Oh, so then the other thing I was just going to say in terms of gender-based violence, yesterday I heard a presentation from, let me see if I can find her name. It's Be the Peace Institute. Anybody familiar with that? Be the Peace Institute and gender-based violence?
I am. That's an I forget the
Yeah.
woman's who
Yeah.
something. She's in the Bridgewater area. She
Yes.
started Be the Peace when I was the provincial coordinator for Transition House Association. So it's sounding like she's continued to do it. So she, to my knowledge, is reputable and
yes, she did a great presentation, and she talked about the fact that they're trying to get, I mean, it all comes out of the mass casualty report, and they're urging their municipality where she lives to declare gender-based violence an epidemic and address it as such. And she's wanting other municipalities to do the same. So my view would be it would be very helpful to have her come and speak to us as early as possible and think about how we can maybe urge the HRM to think about gender-based violence as a epidemic. Hannah, you wanted to say something, and then Liz, and then Councillor Kent.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about Maggie's suggestions around female entrepreneurs. As a female entrepreneur myself, I understand the struggles that we face on a daily basis when looking for funding or access to resources. And while I agree wholeheartedly that there's a lot that need to be done, I think we're going to have to take a really hard look at what we as a Women's Advisory Committee could do in that regard. Just because the federal government created the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, which I put a link to in the chat, and they are actively working with resources all across the country to figure out the best ways to work from top down. So while I do think the municipality holds a special place in supporting small businesses, I think this might be more of a case-by-case basis while we figure out what the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub is actually going to do in terms of resources, funding, education pieces, because they were supposed to have their big meeting this morning, which I was going to be talking at for another organization, but that has been postponed to the new year. So I suggest we keep this on the burner, but wait to see what the Knowledge Hub has for us before we put anything into action.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Liz, did you want to add something here?
I would love to add 1 cent to Hannah's too, because I feel like what I want to say is she did a great segue for me because she always has my back. So I think it might be really fun as we're sort of thinking about this work setting and purpose setting to think about like what the municipality does. And I would maybe it's not for today. Maybe that could be a learning session for us, a little municipal government 101, perhaps from our learned counselors. Because I think it would be great to be really thoughtful about where we focus our efforts and making sure that where we focus our efforts is in alignment with what a municipality can effect. Right? Like we hear so much about the limitations of the HRM charter and like what we can do and what we can't do and where shared responsibilities are and where we get provincial collaboration and where we don't get provincial collaboration. Of course, federal government is perfect because I'm a federal bureaucrat. So we know that the federal government is doing their best and doing a great job. But, when we start thinking about where different levels of government have impact and where is the municipality's place to shine, I think it makes sense if we're focusing in a big topic to a smaller topic to think, okay, like what are the pieces that are in line with what the municipality does? And one of the reasons I bring up road safety, for example, is because within the confines of HRM, that's somewhere where the municipality has actually an immense amount of power. The municipality can set speed limits. I know that's contentious. I know that's within the province. I know. But the municipality can. The municipality decides where traffic calming goes. The municipality has lots of decisions to make about how and where traffic flows through the city. and how we regulate the movement of enormous, scary death machines that go through the streets where our children play. I have a car, I drive a car, I'm not anti-car. It's the same with like things like active transportation, right? Like how many AFAB cyclists are there versus how many male cyclists are there? And why is that? Like, is there the infrastructure to support these things that we know are better for the climate, better for our bodies, better for our enjoyment, better for our wellness? This is like, that's the bread and butter of a municipality, right? Like, our streets is something that a municipality can really get its teeth sunk into. So I think it would be great to just get an idea of like, where would we be able to have the most action, because we're right in what a municipality does. Like, where are our points of fertile soil into which we could sow a beautiful giant pumpkin seed that would grow and flourish. And I think that that's an area of learning for me, where the boundaries are between different levels of government and who does what and how they do it, and how we can all sort of leverage our areas of power. And that would, I think, be a really helpful learning for me. Maybe you guys are all experts on municipal governance, in which case I apologize for wasting your time. But just in case there are other people like me who maybe could use a little boost, that would be great. But also like to help us be really strategic about which specific things we pick within those broader categories.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention, while we are still on this topic, that I think the last meeting of the African Descent Advisory Committee had a similar presentation to what you were talking about there, Liz. It was just a presentation given by staff, kind of speaking to the different, who was responsible for what, and kind of outlining what's a federal responsibility, what's municipal, provincial, what are shared responsibilities, and kind of how those play out in the policymaking process. So that's definitely, I think, very feasible.
Who did that,
option
Elizabeth?
for us?
Who did that presentation?
I was Ian McLean, our municipal clerk, and it might have been in collaboration with a few other staff. I wasn't there for that. I knew that it had happened. So
is it recorded somewhere where I can just go and watch it and then stop being so ignorant?
First of all, I don't think you're ignorant. I think people on all committees are learning all the time about different like responsibilities between different levels of government. But there is a recording on it that's available on YouTube. It was streamed from the Harbor East Marine Drive chambers, but there was some kind of issue with the video part of it, but the audio is there, and I can send that to you. It is on YouTube. It's the link.
That would be delightful. And instead of using the pejorative ignorant about myself, I will say that I am embodying the Zen concept of beginner's mind.
I mean, I think it's a great suggestion, and maybe a really good way to start the year, is just to kind of review what is the municipal scope of municipal issues, and what is out of the scope of municipality, and then how our issues that we've identified kind of dovetail with the scope of the city. The other part of it is the HRM. I mean, and has priorities as well. So they've already identified some priorities, and so if their priorities and our priorities align with theirs, I think it becomes even more effective. So, Hannah, I think you wanted to pitch in here.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think this idea of really figuring out where we can make the most impact and using our time and energy wisely is super important, especially going into an election year, right? There's going to be times when we are going to be pulled away from our plan, most likely. And so narrowing down like really what most of us agree on as our top priorities and figuring out, 2 to 5 things that we can actually make a difference on during this election year is probably a wise way of doing that, and educating ourselves on how to do that best is a really good idea. So I appreciate all the thoughts that have been brought up around this.
Okay. So going forward from here, this is what I'm going to suggest as a process, that we try to summarize these ideas that everybody's put forward and categorize them. And that next meeting in January, we decide, okay, like Hannah suggested, what 2 or 3 things do we think we have the most likelihood of impact? Or in the next meeting, we have a presentation on municipal responsibilities, and postpone the discussion about what our priorities are until after we've heard that presentation. Any thoughts on that? Oh, Amy, I'm sorry. Amy had wanted to speak, and she wanted to reply to something that Liz said. My apologies, Amy. Step in here.
Oh, that's okay, Jane. And I apologize, folks. I can't have my camera on tonight, but I just wanted to share some things. I would say they're more generally around all of the discussion this evening that the committee might want to consider. So the first one, we, in the work plan for the committee this past year, one of the pieces was around equity and gender-based data, and that when we don't have the data to understand the impact of certain services, programs, strategies on women and gender diverse folks, to encourage the municipality to I guess, come up with solutions for that. And so I just kind of wanted to point on that particular issue, that could be an area that would be really helpful. It was something that was identified through the motion that you folks brought forward as a committee when Christine Chinyang was on the committee around race and gender-based data. So that was an information report. And so there are some sort of like high level kind of ideas about where the municipality could go in terms of equity data collection and analysis. That might be interesting for folks to take a look at and see if there's any actions there that you'd like to integrate into your work plan. And I think in general, that kind of approach can be applied to other motions that you folks have brought forward as well. At the presentations, and I think this may have been in the kind of the last iteration of the committee. I think we have a lot of new members since these presentations were given around the intersections between gender and the climate crisis. And there was a motion that came forward from the committee, as some folks might remember, around that piece. And Nancy Anningson from the Halifax team wrote a report about that. And so it's not to say that that report is the be all and end all, but it might kind of give a path if folks want to take a look at it and see, are there any particular pieces where the municipality does have jurisdiction and where the Halifax team are working that the committee might want to have more say on or contribute further to. And
so can I just ask if
sure.
kind of feedback here? So that is an example, I think, of where we could be proactive and say, okay, well, this is what the city's doing. We're concerned about that. Is there anything that we think we should have input on to continue to reinforce what the city's doing, or to suggest that we do something different? Is that what you're getting at there?
I think what I'm suggesting is like, I guess, building on the work that you folks have already done. That when we discuss, and sorry, the reason I'm not on camera as well is because I'm not feeling the greatest, but so my words are also not coming out very clear, but just to kind of speak to the work that the committee has already done on some of these issues, and staff have sort of put forward different reports or responses to those motions, and they could sort of provide a basis from which to continue working. So you might be able to read that report and say, okay, like this kind of, it attends to these particular issues, but it doesn't quite hit the mark on this piece. Or this is where we think, based on this information, the municipality could go to take action on things that have come through in the work that you folks have already sort of I guess, brought forward by the motions that you have put forward in the past.
Okay.
And then just to kind of finally say that, you know, of course, Bailey and myself and Elizabeth, we don't know the ins and outs of all of the departments and teams in the municipality, but just to sort of put it out there to you folks, you know, if you're looking at kind of developing a work plan with more specific actions, I know Hannah, you had just mentioned, like, what are some, you know, 2 to 5 things that we really want to hone in on? Please do lean on us in terms of getting more information about the work that we're doing in the Public Safety Office, DNI, and ANZIO. And we also, you know, connect with colleagues across teams that are working on different issues, for example, like safety in public spaces. So just a reminder to, yeah, we're here as a resource. And so please do feel free to ask us questions. And if we don't know the answer, we can definitely try and connect.
Thanks, Amy. That's great. That's great. Okay, any other comments or suggestions about topics that we might want to be concerned with? So I just found the name of the person. I think it's Sue Buckchen, I think, who is with the Peace Institute in Bridgewater. And the other topic that one of the persons that I know, a woman that I know, who follows our meetings quite carefully and knows what we're up to, has suggested that we might want to also think about active school travel. It's an issue that she's been quite interested in, and I know that the Active Transit Committee, I think, has done some work on that, and we may want to just have a look at that as well because of its impact on women and children. Pam, I think you wanted to get in here.
Yes, thank you so much. I will just let you know that the Transportation Standing Committee will be tabling the road safety strategy report at our next meeting. That obviously is really important if we're thinking about school safety, pedestrian safety, you know, talking about how we prioritize safety. And I think this, you know, I agree with having the conversation around the roles and responsibilities for the various orders of government to help people understand, you know, what we are responsible for. Obviously, when we talk about strategic road safety, we're talking about municipal roads, and over half of the roads in HRM are provincial roads. So we are, but that being said, we are still prioritizing school zones and looking at ways that we can create safer school zones, work with school communities to create, you know, the walking school bus and different kinds of programs. Bike to School and the Active Transportation Committee has had all kinds of great ideas. So I like this idea. I think it aligns really well with the committee, and obviously aligns well with the work that we're already doing at HRM. But that being said, there could be some pieces here that this committee could push a little bit more on, especially when it comes to data, collecting the data, and ensuring that that kind of performance review of the programs meets the needs of our targeted audience.
How would we, what are you suggesting in terms of the sort of implementation there? Would we have someone come and give us an update on what they're doing on this report, or how would you see that?
So I think that's a great opportunity, is actually to have, you know, someone from Active Transportation, for example, to come in and discuss the program, to look at, because we are launching a rural program, looking at ways to create much more, you know, as I said, safer walking for children and residents throughout the entire municipality. We're not just focused on the urban area where there's typically sidewalks or bike lanes. So I think it's important for us to have that broader view, to actually invite staff who are working on these projects to inform this committee as to, you know, what they're doing and how it is that we can ensure that, you know, that we're aware of that and we can offer suggestions.
Yeah. So this speaks to exactly what Liz was talking about, where we're kind of being a little bit proactive around not necessarily policy, but certainly programs that the HRM is considering, and ensuring that we use a gender-based analysis lens and look at those. Yeah. Liz.
I'm just wondering, and I mean, I know you said the meeting's coming up, Councillor Lovelace, so maybe we missed our window here, but if there's a strategy that's being presented, like this is sort of an example of what I would love to see us do, is that if a strategy is being finalized and it's going to be presented to a committee, I would like to see it come to us first so that we can read it. And then when it's presented, it can be presented along with a report or a letter, depending on, you know, how much we have to say. You're all very lucky that I'm not the chair. It would be a report every time. But Jane can distill things. So that when it is presented, we can say, and here were the gender considerations that were identified. So when you're considering the implementation of this strategy, here are the things that you should consider. Or conversely, if we look at it and we say, okay, but this is going to be absolutely terrible for women, of course, that would never happen, but just in case, then we can send it back and say, like, look, I don't think this is ready to present. I think you guys should defer until you've addressed some of these major issues, because our recommendation as the committee is going to be that this not be adopted. Like, I wonder why we don't make recommendations, right? Like, why doesn't it come to us to say, and the Women's Advisory Committee endorses this strategy and recommends that you adopt it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, and it can. So here's what's great. So here's what's really great about this is that if we identify this as part of our priority, and moving forward, anything that comes up at Transportation Standing Committee that is relevant to this priority, as a councillor, as chair of Transportation Committee as well, I can make sure that that information is tabled. So for example, on December 13th, Transportation Standing Committee will review as an information item, they will have the strategic road safety framework that will be tabled but not debated. It will be presented at the January meeting, which will be, I think, the end of January 25th or something like that. So that would give this committee plenty of time to review it between December 13th and January 25th, so that at the next walk committee, we'd actually be able to have comments on it, and then table comments to Transportation Standing Committee for consideration on that, you know, that strategy, the review of the strategy. Is that Liz? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, look, it's not my birthday till the summertime, and here you are giving me presents.
Yeah, Liz, and so Liz, like we're going to count on you to bring something to our January 11th meeting on active transit, so that we can have some input into this strategy report.
Have some opinions on stuff, Jane? I don't know, but I can try.
But this is not just active transit. This is the entire road safety.
Yeah,
strategy.
they have their big AGM at the end of January too.
Yeah.
So it's good timing.
So it is good timing, and I think that you know, the more relevant that this committee can be to create input and recommendations, the better decisions council will be able to make.
Yeah. And so just some historical background. I mean, the reason we even set these priorities for learning is because we realized as a new committee, if we sat around and waited for city departments or policymakers or program developers to come and ask us for our input, we'd be sitting around a long time. So rather than take this kind of reactive approach, we'll just sit and wait till somebody comes and asks for our input, we decided we will try to become more proactive on what we're thinking about. At least we know that these are issues of concern to women, like you've just identified, Liz, that safety on roads is an issue that impacts women particularly. And we will then try to take that issue and our understanding and influence city programs and policies. So I think over time, my hope is that over time, everyone will be very aware of the Women's Advisory Committee and go, oh my gosh, we better get their input on this particular issue. But until that day, we're going to just have to do our part to be proactive. So how does that sound? But we've got a good one now. This is great. Way to go.
The value add of having a loudmouth on your committee. That's what I have to offer you all.
So we all have good brains. It's all
We
nice.
appreciate you, Liz.
It's nice to have everybody here. Yeah. Okay, so for next meeting, then we've got two things that we need to be dealing with, and one will be kind of a review or a synopsis of the issues that we've identified, and we'll try to boil that down and come up with some things where we really want to focus. And then the other would be to try to have some input on the on the transportation strategy. Have I got that right, Pam? I keep saying the wrong thing. I think it's the overall transportation.
Yeah, road safety strategy, and we'll get that on the agenda.
Road
And,
safety.
Yeah, I'll make sure that Elizabeth has that, and we'll include that as a link on the agenda for consideration for discussion.
Yeah, so road safety strategy will be on the agenda, and perhaps at that point we'll be able to make some recommendations. If we have the information ahead of time, we can read, and maybe some guidance from you, Liz and Pam, on what we might be able to do. Then we might be able to do a report, or at the very least a letter. How's that sound? Okay, I think we're good on that, on the discussion of the work plan. As I said, I will send out the sort of synopsis to you ahead of time for you to read, because I've taken notes. I've tried to understand what you've said. That doesn't mean I actually have understood it and represented it accurately. So please, when you get the notes, just let me know if you want it corrected or amended or changed in any way. Say, that wasn't what I was trying to say. I was trying to say this. Okay? How's that sound? All right. Then we are going to move on from this agenda item to committee member updates. And we're going to move over to Councillor Kent. And she's going to give us a little update on the HRM Council.
Thank you very much. Jane, I'm happy to share a little bit, and this is all available if anyone doesn't want to take notes or wants to remember it later. A little more detail is all on the Halifax website. Making a Difference in Our Region is the title that you'd look under. So some highlights from November 14th are a motion around incentive or bonus zoning for public benefits was approved. It was amended but approved. And the way that makes a difference here is that it is around development applications that come in, if there is a portion of them that are dedicated to affordable housing, or in some cases deeply affordable, depending on what's available, that they would get the ability to be a little more denser on that particular project. So that was amended, and so that money could be collected around interim density bonus program to be eligible for public benefits according to including affordable housing. So that's good news. The program, the affordable housing grant that is at play as well, is to be undertaken before the 2024-25 grant year ends. And so that's ongoing, and that'll be as well part of a lot of the discussion around at budget. So a staff report is available on that. Making our schools safer, the municipality is introducing a Safe Schools Streets Road Closure pilot program for 2 schools. These are strategies aimed at creating safer and more vibrant environments for students, pedestrians, and communities by temporarily limiting vehicle access to certain streets near schools. These initiatives will prioritize the well-being of recreational needs of residents, especially children, by repurposing roads for activities such as walking, biking, playing, and socializing. So that's a positive pilot that's happening. That means that a safe school street would be a car-free block beside a school, open to walking, biking, and wheeling during pickup and drop-off time. So that's those particular times, if any of you are parents and have experienced this at the schools, drop off and pick up can be rather chaotic, rather unsafe, rather frustrating, rather scary. a number of things. So I think that this is a pilot. It's very, very different from anything that's ever been done here before, but that has been approved. And there will be 2 schools that will be on that and will be open for a 2-year period. The period I can't remember the schools and I'm not seeing it here. So just quickly to be able to keep going. New commemorative names were introduced for municipal parks, and one in particular was the William King Elementary School. That one is so that's new commemorative names introduced to municipal parks, buildings, and streets. So they come forward, our streets and asset naming staff come forward periodically to council because we have to approve if there's any changes to be made or additions to be added to naming. So that's one that was put forward. Additional funding as well was approved to support volunteer ground search and rescue teams. Regional Council approved the award of 3 operating grants totaling $25,000 for 3 ground volunteer rescue teams, GSARs, and in addition to a one-time operating grant to Sheet Harbor. Now, these GSAR ground search and rescue units are all volunteer, but they do need money to be able to facilitate the very, very important emergency ground search and rescue scenarios that they do operate in partnership, usually with our police and our firefighters and such. So this was supported. And it's also being supportive of increasing funding to volunteer emergency service providers for consideration in the next budget year. So that's some good news. The Canada Soccer Toyota National Championships is coming to Halifax. That'll be October 4th to the 9th next year. That will include a large capacity soccer playing on the Halifax Commons, the Dartmouth East, and the Bedford Hammonds Plains roads. Those are always welcome events for Halifax. We very much are a city of hosting, and soccer is one of the fastest growing sports when I was a young woman playing soccer. So it's particularly exciting to hear that this one is another big one coming to the city. And then I think lastly, these are some of those sort of larger pieces. Lots of activity, obviously, in the Cogswell District project. There's been significant progress made, still lots to go, but some of the more recent milestones were the Valor Way to facilitate closure of Valor Way to facilitate construction of a new roundabout there, which will be a very different infrastructure. The removal of ramps and retaining walls, extending the bike lane. There have been some trees planted and sod laid. So for the new Ordnance Park, regrading has begun around installing features in the new Granville Park. Underground services for the new district energy system. And they've completed part of the upper portion of Proctor Street, and they're continuing the mass excavation and repurposing of soil for the South End project to the north end to build up a new roundabout there as well. So short story on that is that progress is being made. It is a lot less problematic now that you can actually get through on the thoroughfare between the bridge and Barrington Street, but it's really kind of at the point where I think we're going to start to see a lot more things coming along that is progress versus the opposite, which is the tearing down. So that was encouraging for council to hear. Councillor Lovelace, this is my first report. I don't know if there's things I've missed, but I would encourage you, if you think there's something there that we did with council, to feel free to add it in.
Thank you. No, that's a great report. I would just say that we were able to move forward a motion to executive committee with regards to the request to look at charitable tax donations and how it is that the municipality could actually impact funding for candidate campaigns. So that was well received. It was a really good discussion. Obviously, I would actually, and Elizabeth, maybe this is something that we can look at, is having that tracking sheet so that when we know that a motion has been made by this committee, that we know where it sits and where it's gone to, because it has to go first to executive and then potentially to regional council or back to this committee. I just think it would be really helpful if we can monitor those motions. But no, that was a great overview. Thank you so much.
Pam, that's a great suggestion in terms of having kind of a tracking sheet. I think that's easy to do. Elizabeth, she does all the follow-up in terms of preparing the motions to go on to executive standing committee and reports back to us. But we don't have one sort of place where we can see, okay, this is what we've done. And I think that's easy enough to do. We'll go back over 2023, look at all the motions and track them. And then
Yeah,
going
I'll definitely
forward.
look into that as well.
Yeah.
I think that is a great idea, great suggestion.
Yeah, you've got all that data, Elizabeth. So it's just a matter of kind of us pulling it together, and it'll be very encouraging, I think, to committee members. So I think we're pretty much, Councillor Kent, thank you for that report. I meant to say that, my apologies. Thank you for that. It's helpful for us to know what the city council's up to. Appreciate that. I believe there are no added items. We have a date established for the next meeting. It's not the very first Thursday in January. It's the second one, January 11th. So you get a little bit of a breather there. And the only other thing, this is just a little note for me, Amy Brierly, you had 3 points, and I've written down the 2 of them. And I wouldn't mind if just when the meeting's done, if you would just stay on after the meeting and you could tell me what that first point was, and I could just put it in my notes so I don't miss capturing it. Thanks.
Yeah, sure, Jane.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, I welcome. A motion. Before we got to the motion of adjourn, I'm hoping that all of you, if you get a break over the next month, that you have a really healthy and happy time visiting with friends and family. And in my case, we eat turkey and give gifts and have a grand old time with family. And it's a great time of year. And so I hope that it's the same for you, and that when we come into the new year and our next meeting, that we come back together all hale and hearty and refreshed and ready to work hard. So thanks for everything that you've done over the past year, and my warmest best wishes for a very healthy, happy holiday season. And now, unless anybody else wants to say something, I welcome a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn. Oh, Hannah, same brain. You move it. I'll second it.
I don't need a seconder. Hannah's moved in, then the meeting be adjourned, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.